What is going on, everyone? Today we are going to talk about the sports card market at a very high level. There's a few things I want to talk to here around some moves that I'm making with regards to how I'm spending my money, what kind of cards I'm buying, and also why I'm pretty excited for the trajectory that we're on. But I also want to talk to this because it's been in my pipeline for maybe 1 or 2 weeks based on some commentary, I've seen online via social media, seen via card show vlogs in the States, seen via card shows here in Australia around some pitfalls that people are making. And there's some things here I want to clarify that I really hope you guys can keep front of mind when you're approaching your buying over the next few months or years, because there's some mistakes that I think personally that people are sort of making. I really want to get your, viewpoints on that as we talk through it today. Now, the reason why this is today's video is because Dustin put out a video a few days ago, and I thought this would be a good leapfrog from the things he talked to. He put out a video and explained why half of his collection is Tom Brady cards. And he essentially talks to the fact that, he has a bit of a mix to his approach. He's buying things to flip, he's buying things to investing, he's buying things to keep. So he sort of takes a multifaceted approach with his buying. And that's the reason why half of his collection is Tom Brady cards. And he talks about it being a risky play considering the way the hobby's moved. And he talks through how, he's wanted some cards, over the last few years, like many of us had, that we were priced out of. So he's now trying to buy those, which is the same thing I'm doing with like my flawless soccer, right? Which, this Ramirez over here is something that I picked up the other day. It's gold out of 10. That would have been very expensive, 2 years ago. It's a lot more affordable now. So I can understand his perspective on that. And I think, many of you guys as collectors, think the same way. The reason why it's sort of interesting is some of the things he talks to a little bit later on around the risky element, because he talks to how, he loves buying, 15th year career, as in the 15th year of a player's career, Prism cards as an example. He loves buying the latest stuff because he likes to look at the cards and things like that. Whereas you guys will know on my channel, I talk about how that sort of stuff scares me, because I always look at things from the perspective of what would, the true collector for that card want at the end of the day. Now, Dustin is more than fine to collect how he wants. I'm not trying to say that's bad or anything like that. And I want to make it very clear that I'm happy for people to collect however it is they want. And I'm not judging anyone by doing anything that they're buying, right? Because if you're buying it, you're obviously liking it. So that's the point I'm trying to make there. I just went on a mini rant. But the reason why I thought this was interesting off the back of his video is because I left this comment here where I said, I think this is the general consensus for many within the hobby right now. The GOATs are obviously the right play, but people need to go one step further and go after cards that actually matter, like Dustin mentioned within his video. I then go on to say, I see so many people focused in on chasing cards that boomed during the last few years, purely because they're now affordable, which is fine. Like I just said, I did that myself, but there's a few things to clarify here, which I'll get to in a second. I then basically said, not everything will bounce back, and I've got a video brewing, which is what you're sort of seeing right now. And Dustin replied and said the cards that will matter might be the most complex logic within the hobby, because, I agree, everyone has a different opinion on that. And like I just explained, that is okay, which is what I agree with here. And I essentially wanted to talk through that process today. And the thing that I, really want to flag is what I mean by that. Now, when I'm looking at cards that I'm buying personally, I'm looking at, well, what would the true collector for that player want, right? And I think that's how we all approach things. We all want a Michael Jordan rookie, but we can't afford that. So we try and go to the next best thing. Some of us want on-card auto. Some of us want, game use stuff. And there's, very specific sets that do that better than others. For basketball, it would be Exquisite. For the Panini era, it would be things like Flawless or Eminence. So when you want that stuff, you want the best, right? And ideally you do, at least that's what I do from a collector's perspective. And what we've sort of found over the last few years is that became too expensive, right? Because everybody wanted the best. And what we sort of found, as I've explained before, which is the point for today, and I know I'm going on a long rant to get there, is, people start at this point, over here where they've picked the thing they want, right? And they're like, well, that's too expensive. That MJ rookie, that Exquisite patch auto is too expensive. So I'm going to go to the next best thing. And then during the boom, that next best thing got too expensive. So they went even further and further and further. Meanwhile, given that so many people entered the hobby, you've gone, 20 steps behind where you wanted to be, because that was all that was affordable. And my point around people needing to be careful, in my opinion, with how they're spending their money is, people are now jumping in to say, well, I was 20 steps away from getting that rookie card that I previously wanted, or that Exquisite card, but now I can afford something 10 steps away. And the messaging I have is that thing that is 10 steps away still close enough to the rookie card to be valuable long term? Because are we going to see that thing disappear too? Because people only bought that one thing because they couldn't buy the rookie card, they couldn't buy the Exquisite card. And that's where I think people need to be careful. Just be very conscious of what you're buying into, and whether, if all crap was to hit the fan, is the thing you're buying actually what, a collector would want at the end of the day? Another collector. Yeah, a flipper might want it right now because they can, flip it between themselves, as I've talked to you before. But is a collector going to actually want that? Or is it the instance of people purely buying these cards because they can't get the thing they really want? When are they going to get sick of the fact that they couldn't get the thing they really wanted? And from my perspective, that concerns me a lot, which is sort of why I take the approach that I do with my buying and selling, where all the cards that I do buy, I paid for via profits. So I don't get exposed to the risk of what I just explained. But, I just feel like we're going to reach a point where, everyone wants the one thing. We've moved so far away from what that one thing is. And that goes to, other sports too, with speculation on things like MetaZoo and, F1 and all that stuff. People keep moving further and further away. They start speculating on player positions that weren't, expensive cards in the past, or they weren't sought after in the past. So they sort of all got their fingers into all these other things purely because they couldn't get the thing they wanted because they were priced out of it. Is the demand going to come back for all those other things that have shifted so far away from the thing that everybody wants? And I know this is probably a really complex way for me to explain it, so I really hope you guys can sort of catch on with what I'm trying to talk to, but I just think it's, very interesting and quite concerning when I'm seeing, the decline in prices over the last, 12 months, and obviously greater than that, but we've seen significant decline in the last 12 months. And people are sort of chasing things that were big during the boom, but they're still not the thing that people want. Are those things going to come back? Now, I will say this again, buy what you want, do what you want, collect how you want, as long as you're having fun and you can financially afford it. That's all that matters, right? Having fun and not overexposing yourself is all you can ask for. But if you're somebody that's sort of sitting on the fence or you're unsure how to proceed, that's where my mind is. It's like, okay, that thing that people wanted back then, is that something they still want now? And I don't know if that is the case or not, just based on what I'm seeing online. I just see all these people jumping into things that only blew up because people couldn't get what they wanted during the boom. Now, obviously, if demand and pricing picks up again, that stuff might come back and you'll make good money, but it still seems very risky to me. Like, will a collector want a 10th year prism of a player? Will a collector want a 2021, serial numbered card out of 100 when there is literally thousands of those printed across multiple different sets, printed across Topps and Panini? Like, it's just getting crazier and crazier. You're looking at rookies today that have, rookie cards, over 6,000 of them, when 10 years ago there was only 100 or so. Like, it's just wild to me where, money is being spent. And not only that, there is so much more product these days. You've got cards that are numbered out of like 199 from a Hoops product, right? But then you've got the same thing in Prism and Optic and all that sort of stuff, and Spectra. So those three things that I just named are going to take priority over those Hoops things, which then also goes into those deviations away from the card that I explained a bit earlier, right? It's not just, a rookie card and then taking all those steps away. It's also different products too. It's like you're stepping, 20 steps away from the card you want, but now you got to factor in all the different tiers to the product and all that sort of stuff as well. So a bit of a mini rant there for me today. I hope it made sense. If it didn't, I do deeply apologize. Sometimes I go on a bit of a ramble, but it's just something that was front of mind over for me for the last few weeks that I thought would have been really relevant to talk to, because it's just quite concerning. And I will say this again, buy what you want, have the fun that you want. It doesn't matter what people think about what you're buying or anything like that. As long as you're having fun and you can afford it, that is all good in my book. I'm not going to judge, and I think the same goes for everyone else. But it's just worth keeping front of mind. And it goes to the way I collect, like I said, pay for things via profits. But there's also some talk recently around the downturn in the market. And I've talked about this a few times, especially with the whole Justin Gamble clapback video towards me. The thing I'll stand by is that, yeah, the market's down, obviously. But if you're smart with how you're buying and selling things, you're still going to be making great margins on everything that you do, in fact, buy. The people that are struggling are the people that have no clue and jumped headfirst with all this money and basically bought, overpriced base cards and things like that. That was where the concern is coming from. That's where a lot of the panic is coming from as well. But if you're smart, and you can see plenty of guys that do this, SCV, who's a new one that's popped up that talks through this process all the time. Sports Card Radio talk about this a lot. If you're smart with what you're buying and you're very targeted with what you're buying and you're keeping in front of mind, well, I'm a collector, this is something that interests me, so that's going to be something that's going to interest someone else that's like-minded like you, you're going to be fine, right? The margins are there to be made. You just can't make it hand over fist like you probably did 2 or 3 years ago, but that doesn't mean things are bad or terrible, right? You can still make money in this space. You can still have fun in this space, and I really want, people to keep that sort of stuff front of mind. So, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.